Tony, the word optimism is defined as follows: hopefulness and confidence about the future or the successful outcome of something. Now, what happened with the Red Wings this past week, talking about the injuries to Dylan Larkin and Andrew Kopp and the losses starting to pile up here. Where is your optimism level at? Because I feel like you're a lot more optimistic than I am, and I'm more of the Debbie Downer. I feel like we're going to play a lot of good cop, bad cop tonight. So where are you at, man?
It's too bad the voice of reason, Devin Little, is out sick tonight. I don't know. It's like they got dealt a really tough hand, and just makes me think about all the articles I wrote about how the Red Wings needed to add a top 6 scorer at the deadline. And yeah, that'd be really great right now.
I feel like, and I'm probably going to see it more a lot later tonight, is that I see that bleach meme. You know that meme with that guy and he takes the bottle of bleach and everyone posts it when their teams are like falling apart or if like a top player gets hurt. They're like, you know, the guy with the bleach. I feel like I've been seeing that on Twitter all week and I'm afraid to open it now to see more of these, but I'm more of a Nancy Kerrigan right now, where after seeing these injuries go down, I'm just screaming, why? So that's where I'm at, Tony. It's not fun.
Why?
Welcome to the Flying Octopus Podcast, offering a new perspective on Red Wings hockey, as well as all the important news from around the NHL. And now, here are your hosts, Tony Wolak, Devin Little, and Evan Sabrin.
Hey, it's Carter Bear, and you're listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast.
Welcome to episode 74 of the Flying Octopus Podcast. I am your host, Evan Sabrin, joined by my co-host, Tony Wolak. Evan Little is on the IR with Dylan Larkin and Andrew Kopp today as he's calling in sick tonight. Got a lot to discuss on today's show, and I feel like some of it's not going to be, what we were hoping to discuss, a little more cheery. There's definitely a lot to get to. Death, taxes, and the Red Wings in March. You have March Madness, but right now for the Red Wings, it feels like March Sadness. The Wings fell tonight 4-1 to Tampa in Florida. Red Wings currently hold the top wildcard spot in the standings with 79 points. Boston lost to San Jose tonight, so they sit back 1 point back from the Red Wings with 78 points, while Columbus gained a point in an OT loss to our good friends in Florida. But to remind you, both Boston and Columbus have a game in hand on the Red Wings. So it's been kind of a crazy week for the Red Wings, losing to the Florida game. I saw an amazing stat there, Tony, in that 90 seconds where the Red Wings blew the lead, their playoff chances went down 10% just on those 90 seconds of making the playoffs, which I found amazing. It doesn't feel good. These two injuries to Dylan Larkin and Andrew Kopp. If you've been living under a rock, the captain suffered a right leg injury last week when he caught an edge and his knee buckled in a 3-1 loss to the Panthers, while Andrew Kopp injured his leg versus the Panthers in a disappointing 4-3 loss this past Tuesday. And it was just fitting that it was a former Red Wing, Thomas Nosek, who tangled up Kopp on the faceoff, and off Kopp went to the trainer's room. Red Wings over the last 3 seasons are 5-12-0 when Dylan Larkin is out of the lineup. So, Tony, there's so much to get to, and just the fact that what happens to this team in March, and a lot of people, it is doom and gloom all around Red Wings Nation. What can you tell us that can kind of make us try to see something, a little brighter projection as to how the rest of the season plays out in the final 16 games?
Well, look, they have to take it one game at a time. I mean, that's all you really can do. And Larkin's not walking in the door to save them anytime soon. Same with Andrew Kopp. David Perron's still a few games away. They're going to have to figure it out. And I do think they're a more resilient team than what we've seen in the past. It's just a matter of following through on the ice. And I know that these games recently have been losses and it's been tough to watch, but there have been good moments to pull from those that give me some hope for the next few games. Speaking to the Tampa Bay game tonight, We're recording on Thursday night as usual. And while the Red Wings lost and the score ended up being a little bit more lopsided than the game, showed throughout, Detroit really did do a good job of generating offense, of creating sustained offensive zone pressure, of limiting the Lightning's chances. Played the right game. There were just a couple of hiccups here and there, but I really liked what I saw out of the top line of Alex DeBrincat, JT Compher, and Patrick Kane. The line of Emmett Finney, Marco Kasper, and Lucas Raymond, they had a couple of great shifts as well, and we're doing a really good job of cycling the puck and creating chances down low. A lot to like from those two lines. And the fact that the other two forward lines, stayed afloat, great. I mean, that's all you can ask for when it's pretty much AHL players on those bottom two lines. Defensively, again, they didn't give the Lightning too many chances. There were some breakdowns here and there, which is normal. What I took away from the Lightning game was this is what a potential playoff game could look like. Obviously, the Red Wings would want to have Dylan Larkin and Andrew Kopp in the lineup for the first two periods, at least, even into the third period. It was a tight checking game. It was a close game. The refs put the whistles away for the most part, and it was a physical first round matchup type of game. It's something that the Red Wings will face, if they make the playoffs still, will face with the Carolina Hurricanes or Tampa Bay Lightning or whoever they face. This sort of like muck it out, dirty sort of game, but it's just a learning experience at this point because it's still the regular season. Now, obviously, any points. Came away with no points for the second consecutive game. Not great. What you can do is just go to Dallas. It's the last game of the road trip. You give it all you got, and then you get to go home. Get to go back to your bed, go back to your families. This is the last stop on the road trip for a while until they're, back on the road, and just continue to just lean into effort, lean into having no passengers on the ice. You're not going to be the most talented team out there, but you could put forth a stronger effort. I was maybe underestimating the Red Wings coming into the game just based on, the losses that have piled up lately. So they may take things lightly. Who knows? But if the Red Wings come out strong and follow their game plan, yeah, effort can win. We saw that tonight in Tampa Bay. The Red Wings put forth a really strong effort. Obviously didn't get the win, but still, effort is the only thing you can really go off of this at this point.
I know you mentioned the next 6 games, which are the amount of games that Dylan Larkin and Andrew Kopp are supposed to miss.
At minimum.
At minimum, correct, as Todd McClellan said. But the players that were brought up, I mean, you're looking at GR, Nate Danielson's hurt, Lombardi's hurt. You're bringing up guys like Trelmax, John Leonard, Sheldon Dries, who played on the line with Dominic Shine tonight. Austin Watson was called. All these guys called for emergency conditions. And if they're going to keep, pulling these guys in and out of the lineup, like, can the Red Wings sustain 6 games? 6 games is a lifetime right now in the playoff chase for this team. How can the Red Wings sustain their pace and keep in this playoff hunt when you're calling up half of the Grand Rapids Griffins right now?
It's almost comical how many emergency recalls the Red Wings have had over the last week. But at this point, all you can really do is just give it your all in terms of effort. What else can you do? You're not going to have more talent than the other team. Maybe the Calgary game coming up in a few games here, but against the Stars, probably not. Against the Bruins, probably not. Against the Montreal Canadiens, probably not. It's all of that to say, without Andrew Kopp, Dylan Larkin, and David Perron, you're going to have to rely more on team buy-in and resiliency and effort to win these games. You're going to need the remaining star players that they have, the Siders, the Raymonds, the DeBrincats, the Canes, and even Edmondson, just to take over and give the Red Wings an opportunity to win. And it's going to require the Red Wings probably to play these top players more than they anticipated. We may be seeing Sider and Edmonton's, up 26, 27 minutes, and Faulk over 20 minutes both, and then the top 2 lines of the forwards over 20 minutes, just to get these talented players on the ice as frequently as possible to score, because otherwise, I mean, the offense isn't there. So you're just going to have to figure out a ways to adjust your strategy to create opportunities, and keeping your most talented players on the ice is certainly one way to do that.
You just also mentioned before that you addressed that the Red Wings needed more scoring in their top six. And I feel I've always said this, that fans, when things go south, fans always, the first thing their reaction is they want to point the blame at someone. And you see a lot of Red Wings fans frustrated about their lack of adding top six scoring. So what do you say to the fans out there right now that are calling for Yzerman's job, saying the Yzer plan has failed, that this team doesn't make the postseason? I mean, is it, you couldn't have picked a worse time for Andrew Kopp and Dylan Larkin to go out in the same week. But how does that reflect on what Yzerman did or didn't do at the trade deadline?
Do you guys really think the Ilitches are gonna remove Steve Yzerman? I don't. Like, come on. Like, let's be honest here. You can be frustrated with just the long wait for returning to the playoffs. I get that 100%, but Yzerman's not going anywhere unless he decides he wants to go somewhere. That's just how it is. Now, yeah, for sure, I would have loved to see the Red Wings acquire a top six forward at the deadline, even before these injuries. I would have preferred that over Justin Faulk, if I'm being completely honest. But it's just not the way, things played out. The price tags on the top six forwards that were out there, Robert Thomas, Vincent Trocheck, it was just too much for the Red Wings to give up. I get that. I wish it was different. I just wish the scenario was different, or there was other players who were out there, or the Red Wings checked in on that, could have been had for a more reasonable price. But it is what it is. And I can tell you that the Red Wings had a massive trade board of players they're interested in, did the research in, had conversations about, and there was no deal to be had that would have made sense for the franchise, both now and in the long term. And Evan, for what it's worth, Austin Watson, John Leonard, and Edwards Trail Mounts just got sent back down to Grand Rapids. So they have a game Friday night, and we'll see what happens afterwards, because they have games Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And man, it might be tough to address 18 skaters in some of those games.
Yeah, they're getting the mileage on I-75 there, aren't they, Tony?
Yep.
Yeah, it's, you can't really plan for these injuries. You look at teams like the Florida Panthers. Well, they lost Barkov for the season. They lost, Matthew Tkachuk, two players who are probably both better than Larkin and Kopp, but those are their play drivers. And Larkin is a massive play driver. But at the same time, the Red Wings, when they went into the Olympic break, Red Wings avoided injuries the majority of the season. They had the least man games lost. I believe it was 43, they said on the telecast tonight, heading into the Olympic break. So this couldn't have happened at a worse time, as I said. Dylan Larkin's injury was a freak accident. He caught an edge, the knee buckled. Thomas Nosek just accidentally fell on Kopp. Well, you can't plan for these kinds of injuries, but they do happen. And these are just unlucky bounces that are happening at unlucky times for the Detroit Red Wings. And it always seems to happen in March. There's like this March curse going on for the Red Wings. And, with the additions that this team has made this season and the way John Gibson's played, I think it's going to come down to the last week. I really think it's going to come down to maybe the final 2 or 3 games, because this is going to be a battle. And this is where the young players, guys like, I know you're a fan of, and the way he's played lately, and Marco Kasper, this is their time to step it up. This is their time to shine. I'm really looking forward to see how they battle this kind of adversity, because this is part of a learning process with a team that's looking to get into the playoffs and fight for a postseason berth. That the things that these players are going through now can only help them down the road. Now, talking about the frustration that all these fans have now, it's more frustrating that these freak things just happened out of nowhere at like I said, the most inopportune time possible for Detroit as they head for this stretch. But I really want to know what you think about Marco Kasper and what he can do down this stretch to really help this team get over this hump, break this 10-year playoff drought and prove what he's worth to this team, because I'm sure Marco Kasper was a name that was brought up in trade speculations, in trade deals. You know more on that than I do, but this is his time. I mean, you can't really go with JT Compher as your one center at some point. Marco Kasper at some point, I think they got to try him on the top line. So how optimistic are you, or how do you feel about the way Marco Kasper has played these last 2 weeks that will, make us feel a little better about how this team can approach this postseason run?
Yeah, once this team is fully healthy, I do expect Marco Kasper to remain in the top six, whether it's centering the second line or playing on Dylan Larkin's wing. But honestly, the last few games he's been great. I know he had a tough start to the season. His point totals aren't where they, would hopefully be, but that's just the typical sophomore slump, and it's something that Dylan Larkin experienced at the beginning of his career too. Your second year in the league, um, especially when it comes to forwards, the defensemen have a book on you. They know how you like to drive to the net. They know how you like to attack, so they know how to close you out. And with Kasper, it's like, yeah, he hasn't been getting very many quality chances. The puck just hasn't been going in. He's gripping the stick. He's trying, probably a little too much to create opportunities, and it's just not working. And it's frustrating. But with this new opportunity, the coaching staff is saying, like, you're up. Next man up, and you're up. And he's taking this opportunity and really running with it. I thought he was outstanding in the Florida game. And I felt in the Tampa game, he, did a great job with generating quality chances on his line with Finney and Raymond, and looking, forward to the next 6 games here, or however many games it is until Dylan Larkin and Andrew Kopp are back. They're gonna have to lean on him a lot and be playing him at least 20 minutes a night if they're gonna want to win any of these games, because he's one of their biggest offensive play drivers at this point.
And that's something that might be a concern for a lot of Red Wings fans. And you mentioned how a lot of these guys are going to really step up in their minutes. What do I know you mentioned you like the Kasper Raymond Finney line, but is there another line combination in the top 6 that you'd tinker with to try to help improve this offense that is stalled without the key play drivers in Kopp and Larkin?
Honestly, I don't think there's a player I would slot in to the top 6 that's not there already. I was thinking about that earlier, and whether it's like James Van Riemsdyk or Michael Brandt-Nygaard, I just don't think there's a fit right now. It just, with the 2 lines that they have in place, they play with pace. They have the chemistry together. And as we saw in the Tampa game, like, they can really create some sustained offensive zone pressure. I just don't think there's anyone else on the roster who can play to that level and to keep things going on those lines. Maybe Nate Danielson, if he wasn't hurt, maybe he could step up and we could see Comfer slide down. Otherwise, I think you got to keep the top 6 in place, just due to the fact that there's really no one else that you can slot in. And honestly, like, going back to something you were talking about earlier about how the Red Wings couldn't really plan for these injuries to happen, I don't fully agree with that. I think this is a good lesson for the organization, that during the offseason, as they're building their team and putting together, like, kind of what they want for their roster next year, they really need to go about doing contingency planning exercises where they go through and say, like, all right, Dylan Larkin's out. How are we running the lines? Okay, Larkin and Lucas Raymond are out. How are we going about things? And kind of picking these different scenarios for, like, if someone's out, they can't play for whatever reason, what do you do? Because, like, if they had this in mind with Larkin, I don't think we'd be in the same place right now. I think there might have been some other acquisition, maybe not like a Robert Thomas caliber acquisition, but something else. Because, like, with the Olympic break, there's always a risk of an injury taking place. We saw that, coming back from 4 Nations last year, Larkin and Raymond were both a little banged up. So you had to assume that was a possibility this year. Both seemed fine coming back, but still it's a lot of miles. So you got to figure that there needs to be something that's just sort of a backup plan in case an injury takes place, and there really wasn't. I did think Andrew Kopp filled in admirably while Larkin was out, but now he's out too. And for what it's worth, I thought JT Compher had a decent game against the Lightning, but their most talented center at this point is Marco Kasper, and it's, in my opinion, it's not really even close.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of changes this offseason, especially if this team doesn't make the postseason. That goes without saying. But I felt like there was a little more they could have done in the top six scoring at the trade deadline. David Perron, who probably won't be back for a week. I know McClellan said today. You're bringing in an injured player who I believe hasn't played in like 2 months. I think the plan is kind of up in the air right now, that they don't know what to do, because when your top two centers go down, it's okay. Oh shit. Now what? I mean, teams that lose their top two centers they're going to struggle no matter what team it is. And especially like guys like Larkin, who is an all-star type player, the leader of this team. It's just hard to fathom that it happened when it happened. And I think that's what's frustrating fans. And that's why everyone's, up in arms about what the organization, what direction it's heading, and how this all plays out in the final 3 weeks here. But I'm definitely feeling March sadness. I don't think they're going to be playing those April and the D commercials anytime soon.
I don't know. We'll just give it some time. It's not like they played bad the last 2 games. So, I mean, the last 3 games, honestly, since the 3 games that Larkin has missed, they've played 3 good games. It's just within the last 2 games, there were maybe, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 total minutes of not great hockey that resulted in them losing. And like, that's part of the learning experience too, is you got to play a full 60. And that wasn't the case in Florida. It wasn't the case in Tampa Bay. They played great hockey otherwise, but that's just, again, something they're going to have to work on, going into the Dallas game and find a way to win or get points. Because, I mean, what else can you do? You can't just roll over at this point.
No, and you definitely, McClellan won't let them do that. It's hard to picture where you go from here. I mean, they're really going to have to stick this out in the 6 games, like we said, and it's put up or shut up time. And with this postseason drought just looming in their heads, the pressure is on this team and in that locker room. Would be great if Perron was healthy now and out there, because that's the kind of voice you really need for someone who's been through these kind of these playoff runs, battles, and getting into the postseason. His voice is worth a lot, and which is why I think he was a trade deadline acquisition for this. But it's tough right now. The optimism is tough to see, especially when you look at the schedule. They have the 6th toughest schedule heading down the stretch here. I don't know why that always happens. It happened last year as well, down the stretch. They just had like a murderer's row, and these next 6 games are going to be they're going to be tough to watch. And you're going up against teams like Dallas and Montreal, and it could be a rough stretch here, and I know a lot of people are losing faith. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about Justin Faulk, as I wasn't on the show last week. Now he's played a handful of games with Detroit, and I'm curious your thoughts on him and how he's fitting in with the Red Wings blue line.
Yeah, so the last 3 games that the Red Wings have played, he's been in the lineup, and what I like that he brings to the table is just poise on the back end. The Red Wings have 2 deep pairs now that they can trot out just about in any situation. And like, I know there's going to be a lot of hate for Ben Sherratt, but frankly, the gaps have been few and far between the last 3 games, just because he has a stable partner next to him. And it's not, Jacob Bernard Docker getting caught out there for over a minute and a half, which this is happening a lot. Like, I'm noticing this way too much, that he just gets stuck out there for way too long. That's a whole nother topic. But back to Justin Faulk, his poise and steady play with the puck is something that the Red Wings really needed on their second pair, so that, for 75% of the game, at least, they have a defensive pair out on the ice who they can trust to get the puck out, to transition up ice, to generate offense. They haven't had that. This is the best defensive group the Red Wings have had in a long, long time now. just based on like overall talent there. Um, as we saw in the Tampa game, there was a play where Tampa entered the Red Wings zone, kind of coughed up the puck a little bit, and Justin Faulk, caught it on his backhand, did a little not a deke, but just like a pause for a quick second, let Lightning players go past them, and then pass the puck up ice to Spring, JVR, and Dominic Shine on a break. If that was any other Red Wings defenseman who had played on a pair with Ben Sherratt this season, the puck would have been off the boards, icing, just gone. Just panicking in that moment of having 2 or 3 Lightning players right on him and being in the defensive zone, but guaranteed icing. But that veteran steady play, everyone's gotten an opportunity out of that, and that's like obviously like not something we're used to, at least with players who are playing a little further down in the lineup. But that just goes to show what type of like defensive acumen and poise Justin Faulk has, and saw that a little bit in the Florida game, saw a little bit in the New Jersey game. And I think as we get further and further down the road here, you're going to see more and more comfortability on Justin Faulk's end in terms of just meshing with this team, which frankly, he's done a really great job with already. So if it can get even better, that's obviously a plus for the Red Wings.
I do still kind of agree with Devin as far as what the Red Wings gave up for him. Although it was nice to see today, for those that didn't see it already, that Dmitry Buchelnikov extended his contract over in the KHL, and he's not going to be coming over this season, as some had originally predicted. And I'm curious, I wonder if, they did send Sergei Fedorov over there to watch him recently, and I wonder if that's something that they knew moving forward going into this trade. But that does ease a little bit of the pain, because when you look at what Justin Faulk went for a couple years ago, which was like a 5th and 6th round pick, and Joel Edmondson, compared to 6 years later, he's going for a 1st round pick and, a decent top prospect in the Red Wings organization. Kind of, it softened the blow a little bit for me today to see that Buchelnikov still isn't coming over. So that tells me maybe he's still not ready to be an NHL player, but yeah, maybe that's why Steve Yzerman knew something that most of us didn't. All right, well, we're going to start to wrap here today. We're down a man, so we don't have as much on us. But, Tony, let me tee you up with some news and notes before we go here. Is the Red Wings got some business done while they were in Florida.
Yeah, literally during the game, too. So the Red Wings and the Lightning completed a trade during the game. And, yes, it happened after the trade deadline, but you are allowed to do that because as long as the players stay in the AHL, it's fine. They're not allowed to play NHL games, but I don't think the Red Wings are going to have Ian Mitchell play in the NHL this year, and that's the player they traded. So the Red Wings traded defenseman Ian Mitchell, who had spent the whole season in Grand Rapids, to Tampa Bay for forward Wojciech Stachowiak and forward Michael Milne. These 2 players are not veterans by the AHL's definition. That helps with, icing the team. You're only allowed to have 5 veterans dress a night for your 18 skaters, and they classify veterans as someone who's played 320 or more professional games, whether that's in the NHL, AHL, or European leagues. And so the 2 forwards that the Red Wings acquired, they do not meet that criteria. So a little less restriction on Dan Watson and Grand Rapids there, especially with all the players in with the Red Wings. It's nice that he's getting a few back for Friday's game. Knowing that at some point, like Anton Hansen's going to come over, Eddie Genborg's going to come over as well. So more reinforcements are on the way for the Griffins. Dylan James, if the Red Wings sign him to an entry-level contract, should be around soon. Griffins fans, I get it. Their team's been shorthanded for the last almost month. I get it, but reinforcements are on the way. And getting 2 depth forwards is just more bodies just to keep a full lineup there. And just the other piece of business I wanted to call out was the Utah Mammoth re-signed center Nick Schmaltz to an 8-year contract. He was probably one of the best free agents that was going to hit the market this summer, and now he's off the board. And that goes to show how thin this class is. Alex Tuck is the best player available otherwise until he probably re-signs with the Buffalo Sabres, and after that, it's Anthony Mantha. It's thin, folks. It's thin.
Come on down, Anthony Mantha.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting summer for sure. But hopefully we got a few more regular season games and then some playoff games before we start talking about off-season additions here.
Yeah, 16 games left, man. This is going to be a very stressful time these next 3 weeks for Red Wings fans. I'll be honest, like when those games happen, what happened the other night in Florida in that 4-3 loss, I really can't. I can't turn on the TV. I just can't.
I was sick. I was watching it. I was like sick to my stomach that they somehow coughed up that game because they had played so well without Larkin and then lost Kopp and kept playing well, and just I was sick when they tied it up and then got another goal right after.
That was 90 seconds of hell, and you could just feel it coming. I felt like that Lions NFC Championship game against the 49ers where you just saw it coming, and it was just so dreadful. But it was pretty loud here. I was pretty loud at work, and I'm pretty much the only one here watching a Florida Panthers Red Wings game on a Tuesday. So yeah, I might have embarrassed myself a little bit, but hopefully things can turn around here. It's gonna be a stressful last couple of weeks. So
have some faith, Evan. Have some faith.
I know, man. I seriously, I gotta be better about that. I'm just Captain Pessimist. That's why I have you guys, and Devin. That's why it's just Devin should have been here tonight because I need him right now for some counseling or some kind of therapy where he can talk me off the ledge. We have that roller coaster thing going where we always talk about the highs and lows and whatever. We've always had that bond. And Devin, you let me down tonight, buddy. I'm just kidding. We love you. Red Wings wrap up this 4-game trip in Dallas on Saturday before returning home to host Calgary on Monday and then Montreal on Thursday. We'll be back with you on Friday morning, hopefully with a little bit more uplifting of a podcast and not as much doom and gloom. Tony, I know you do your best to be the optimist. So before we let you go, I just want to remind you everyone where you can find us. You can check us out on Twitter at Flying Octopod. You can also like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Flying Octopod and listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So take it easy, Red Wings fans. Take a Xanax, whatever you got, however you deal with these kind of things. Hopefully it'll be okay. We'll talk to you next week. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast. Follow us on YouTube at the Flying Octopus channel and Twitter at Flying Octopod.